Hello and welcome to another 140k Imperial Guard Tactics video. Now before we get into today's video, I would like to say a huge thank you to Malcolm Brown for sending in some awesome pictures of his Valhallan Ice Warriors. It's been a very Valhallan themed week this week. We had the battle report and then we had the pictures yesterday, and now we've got Malcolm's pictures today. I just love a good Valhallan Ice Warrior army, and the fact that I've been able to use so many this week, so many pictures of them this week in my videos, it's just been a real treat to myself, really. I've really enjoyed it. And what's more special is that some of the Valhallan Ice Warriors in this army actually used to be mine. You see, a year or so ago, me and Malcolm did a bit of a miniature swap, and he had some Mordians and some other bits and bobs, and I had loads of Valhallan, originals, and then some Anvil Industry bozos as well. And, we did a bit of a swap, see, and it's really good. So now some of my old Valhallan Ice Warriors are in his army, and some of his old Mordians and Stormtroopers and whatnot are in my army. So it's just really cool. Really cool. This is one of the great things about doing this whole online thing, is that you get to meet and interact with loads of fantastic like-minded people. So thank you for sending these pictures to Malcolm. Great to see my old Valhallans being put to use. They've been in the bottom of the box in my collection for a long time, so it's great to see them hitting the battlefield. If anyone else has got any cool pictures they want me to use in my videos, then please post them on my Facebook page. There will be a link down in the description below. Or if you don't like using Facebook, you can also email them to me at mordianglorytv@gmail.com. And again, that email address will be down in the description below. But that's enough of a preamble. Let's get into today's video. So today's video is going to be another after action report, dispatches from the front, mentioned in dispatches. By the way, thank you to everyone who suggested names for this video series. I couldn't decide which one to pick, so I thought I'll just use them all interchangeably. It doesn't matter. The title is after action report, but I just liked all the suggestions, so thank you for sending those in. And what we're going to be doing today, guys, is covering the battle report that I released at the beginning of this week, the Valhallan Ice Warriors versus the Genestealer cult. If you haven't watched that battle report, I highly recommend you go and watch it. There'll be a link at the end of this video, so skip ahead to the end and it'll be there in the link, because obviously there's going to be lots of spoilers. Doing lots of spoilers, and I don't want you to miss out on that nail biter, because it was a really good battle report. Firstly, thank you to Alex for coming down. Alex is someone who I met through doing this YouTube stuff, and he's a very avid Imperial Guard and very avid, extremely avid Valhallan Ice Warrior fan, and he's got a really, as you saw on the battle report, very impressive Valhallan Ice Warrior army. That was but the tip of the spear. We haven't even seen all his converted Valhallan infantry with Ushanka helmets and Molotov cocktails and all that kind of stuff. So really cool. So thank you for coming down, Alex. It was a great game, and thank you for bringing such a cool and unique army to try on the channel. You see, you get a lot of normal armies out there, but I've been trying to show off things that are a bit more fun and a bit more unique, and because I like to try and do a bit of a mix of serious battle reports and fun battle reports, but all of them around that 2k mark and showing off some crazy ideas. And when I was chatting to Alex about this throughout the week, he was like, hey, why don't I bring my Valhallan Ice Warriors down? I'll bring the pure tank list, I'll bring the Void Shield Generator, which is something that we had chatted about as maybe being a good idea for how do you get an invulnerable save for your guard tanks, and we tried it out, and it was a really interesting battle report. So obviously, spoiler alert, obviously it was a victory for the Genestealer cult, but it was very much the Genestealer cult may have won on objectives, but the Valhallan Ice Warriors certainly won the war. They won the battle. There was not a lot of Genestealer cult left at the end, and there was still 4 or 5 Leman Russes rocking around the Christmas tree. 2 tank commanders were still at large, along with I think 2 Punisher tanks. So, a Punisher tank and a regular battle cannon tank. There was a lot still left around, and there was one of them, the Manticores as well. So yeah, the Valhallan Ice Warriors certainly weathered the storm very well, and I think what was a really good display from the Imperial Guard perspective was that, sure, they struggled on objectives, but actually what I think was really well demonstrated by that Valhallan Ice Warrior army was that armor overload is certainly a thing. And having so many Leman Russes meant that the army was just super durable. Super durable. Which is kind of interesting, because obviously when you take your Leman Russes as part of your mixed guard force, you tend to find that they feel fragile because, someone pops along with the old Eradicators and blows up Lieben Russ, one of your tank commanders, and you're like, oh, well, I've only got 2 tank commanders left. That's not very good. But if someone turns up with a dozen or 10 armoured vehicles, and they're all toughness 8 with 12 wounds, they've all got great firepower on them. And then you've also got those 2 full-pellet manticores, which they're still toughness 7. They're not basilists, they're still toughness 7. They've got 11 wounds. They're hiding out of line of sight, so that adds to their durability because they can't be targeted very easily. And yeah, it actually means that it's really difficult, because even if someone comes in and blows up 2 or even 3 of your armoured vehicles turn 1, against a normal guard army where that would be 3 out of 5 of your damage dealers done, 3 tank commanders, your 2 full pellet manticores. Against this army, it was like, okay, even if you blow 3 of my vehicles up, I have 7 left. 7 armoured vehicles left, all of which are very efficiently loaded out. So I think it really showed the durability, because the way that this list worked is it could take a big punch and it still retained a huge amount of firepower. It was firepower through and through. It retained a huge amount of firepower. And that meant that it was also more durable, because it was able to punch back and do a huge amount of damage to my Genestealer cult. I can't deny that Alex, gave me a bigger bloody face, bloody nose than what I gave him. He had me on the floor twitching by the end, whilst he just had a few bruises. It was a bit of a in terms of, damage dealt, it was a little one-sided outside of a few tricksy Genestealer cult things. He still, I had a handful of neophytes left. He had 4 armoured vehicles left. It was very much in his, ball was in his favour. He probably still had about 1,000 points of stuff left, maybe, roughly. I was probably down to less than 500. So it was very durable. And I've learned this through my Steel Legion. Now, my Steel Legion were my primary tournament army in 8th edition. I know we're in 9th edition now, guys, but bear with me. And this was when vehicles could be tagged in combat. As in fully tagged, like a single grot sneezes on your tank and gets into combat with it. That tank is locked down for that whole turn. None of this you can shoot into combat with its stuff. And with that army, I won Best in Faction the last Caledonian Uprising tournament. And Cali is a competitive event. It was a medium-sized event, 50 or 60 people. When you have 50 or 60 people at an event like Caledonian Uprising, with the pedigree that it has, it's a real shark tank. And I went 4-1 at that tournament. 4-1 with a guard mech list at the end of 8th edition when Marines were around. Just think about that for a moment. It was a pretty, not to break my arm jerking myself off, but I was quite proud of that achievement. And it was because of this armour overload. I was turning up with 5 Lieben Russes, 6 Chimeras and 4 Armoured Sentinels. I was turning up loaded out. And obviously you can't quite do that in 9th edition with the points reductions, or points increases I should say, on units, reduction in how much you can take. But still, in the first battle report that I did with my guard on this channel, for 9th edition, since the lockdown, not the very first one, since we've come back out of lockdown, my Steel Legion took on Chaos Knights and flattened them within inside of 2 turns. Flattened them. So armour overload is a thing, and it is a big deal. Now, one other thing I want to mention from the guard perspective, and one thing that I think Alex did really, really well here, was the loadouts he had in his tanks. Now, he did have some battle cannons rather than demolisher cannons and whatnot, but what I think was a really good demonstration, so the last point I want to make from the guard perspective, was the regular Lieben Russes armed with Punisher cannons. Those things were lethal. Okay, I felt them, and every time he rolled those 40 dice, I was quaking in my boots. It's not an exaggeration. Like genuinely, it was terrifying. And what it showed was that the regular Lieben Russ is a big pile of crap when you're running it with things like battle cannons. And even when you're running it with things like demolisher cannons, it only takes a bit of a whiffer for that Lieben Russ to do nothing that turn, to roll a couple of bad dice, even with a reroll or so, just flub it up. It's dice at the end of the day. That's what we've all experienced. Random number of shots letting us down. Well, don't worry about a low random number of shots letting us down combined with the poor ballistic skill equals, well, that 150 point plus vehicle isn't doing anything this turn. On the flip side, if you take a Punisher as your standard Leman Russes, it's getting 40 shots every turn. It's getting them, and if the enemy wants to tag it in combat, it's still getting them. It's still getting them. So I think for me, it has convinced me that if I'm going to take regular Leman Russes, I want to take them as Punishers. Okay, that would be the route I would go down. Or Demolishers, because Demolishers are just, they are good. And, I did mention, they are swingy though. They are swingy, but they are good. But for me, if I just want that peace of mind, I would say Punishers are equally as good as Demolishers. They're just reliable. They're just reliable. They're just good. And especially we're starting to see things like Skitarii hordes coming back. I've always said Skitarii horde was was a sleeper of an army. We're starting to see people saying that's the way you want to win your AdMech. Well, look, I don't care how fancy of an augmetic you've got. 40 Punisher shots going into a Skitarii mob is going to hurt them. It's going to hurt them. So at least it's going to trim down a squad, 5-man squad every turn, no problem. It's going to do that. That's what you want. That's what you want to be able to do. You want to be trimming those hordes down at least. It's better than they're doing nothing, which is what a lot of basic Leman Russes can do. How many times have we all shot that basic Leman Russ and it's just done nothing? How many times have we seen it on battle posts like Tabletop Tactics? That basic Leman Russ doesn't do anything. Bang a Punisher cannon on it, at least you're going to feel good rolling all this dice, right? Right, so that's everything from sort of the guard perspective. Sort of moving on to the cult perspective now, and general takeaways from that battle report. So from the Genestealer cult perspective, I think it was from my perspective, it was very interesting because I kind of went into that game expecting to lose it. Because everyone knows, it's just a solid fact that it's impossible to win with Genestealer cult, right? Well, that particular Genestealer cult army, I've literally been running it that way, almost unchanged, for 2 or 3 years now. There was a time when I took Genestealer cult competitively to half dozen events, and I did respectably with them. This was even after it became very apparent that they were, cover your ears, children, dog shit. All right, so. Yeah, for me it was interesting. For me, I had, it was like dropping into a comfortable pair of shoes. I had several 9th edition games under my belt, and I had an army which I knew what to do with, and I felt, even with that, I had some good advantages. But still, looking at all that firepower, I knew I was going to struggle. A couple of things that did strike me though. My Genestealer cult army felt like it'd been cut in half. From when I played in 8th edition, I was able to field so many more characters and tricks and stuff, and really playing with that Genestealer cult army in that game felt like I was playing. My army seemed tiny. It seemed tiny. One squad of acolytes, one aberrant squad, only half dozen neophyte squad. That was basically my army combined with some motorized elements. That was basically my army. It felt literally like half of what I could have felt back in fielded back in 8th edition. So that's definitely something to just take away from it. The other thing to take away is Achilles Ridge Runners are fantastic. Achilles Ridge Runners are they really are just little buggies of death, and being able to overcharge their well, I say overcharge, being able to spend a stratagem on them to give them +1 to wound on those mining lasers is filthy. You've strength 9 weapon wounding on 2s is against Leman Russes it helped. I also really like the raking fire stratagem. Being able to have +1 to hit, +1 to wound, regardless of the Jackal Alphas with my heavy stubbers, was nice. Only used it once, but I could definitely see that being, because obviously I was facing tanks. But wounding Leman Russes on 5s instead of 6s was important. It definitely helped. Other thing to mention is heavy stubbers, just in general. I've always said this about Genestealer Cult. The amount of heavy stubbers they can field is a sleeper awesome trait. It's just such an underrated trait. I will stand by the maxim that heavy stubbers win games, especially for your Genestealer Cult. The fact that you get one on every vehicle, the fact that they've just got that decent rate of fire and that fantastic range, 36-inch range, it's just nice. And now the fact that every vehicle can move and shoot them without worrying, and your guys in the back, if you go bladed cog, can shoot them without worrying. I mean, from a single Goliath truck, I was pumping out 3 heavy stubbers. You know, 1 on the truck, 2 on the side. And it doesn't seem like a huge amount, but then I'm only running that times 3. You could easily run that times 6. You know, and that would just be a really strong amount of DACA. A really strong amount of DACA. How that holds up going into Toughness 5 Orc meta, we're going to have to find out. But it's definitely, currently, very interesting. And who knows, with AdMech stubbers going up by a shot, maybe regular heavy stubbers will as well. We'll see. I imagine the ones that the AdMech keep to themselves are probably a bit better than the ones that the Genestealer Cult make in a cottage machine shop. But anyway. So yeah, that was it. Other thing that stood out for me, aberrants. A lot of people write aberrants off. I have played several games with them now, in 9th edition, between the various lockdowns, where they have been unrelentingly durable. Just phenomenally annoying for my opponent to deal with. For those of you that have followed this channel for a long time, you'll know that I have one of my regular opponents is James the Marine, and he's the one that turns up with his full Scion army, and it's all perfectly painted. It's like pure Scions, and it's amazing. And he's actually going to let me borrow it for the channel whilst he's on deployment. So we're going to keep. That's going to be something to look forward to. Some pure Scion army battle reports with vultures and gunships and all this kind of stuff. It's amazing. It's a beautiful army, and the amount of times where my aberrants have popped up, like crushed, you know, clear the LZ where they've popped up, and then have taken like his whole Scion army to just turn around and kill them. Yeah, he will tell you they are annoyingly durable, and it was very prominent in this battle report with Alex how durable they were, and I wasn't even taking them as bladed cog, and I wasn't even taking them with the Acolyte Icon Ward, who lets them reroll 1s and they feel no pain. You can make them more durable. Oh boy, you can make them more durable. But simply having a reduced damage by 1 and a 5+ feel no pain. Oh mama. That actually made a full payload manticore, which you would think would be perfect for killing these guys. That made the full payload manticores feel like a pop gun. Because every time, you know, because those full payload manticores, they're hitting on 4s. So even when Alex was getting like 9 or 10 shots at them, he's only hitting with like 5 of them. And sure, then he's going to wound like nearly all of them, 4 or 5 of them. But then it's just like, okay, well, you know, he wounds like 4 of these full payload manticore shots and reducing them all from damage 3 down to damage 2. Every single time that I roll those 2 5+ feel no pain dice, those 2 5+ shrugs, every time I rolled them, I was getting 1. You know, how many times have we said a 5+ feel no pain feels like a 2+ invulnerable save? I've said this from the beginning. It just crops up so often. That's why Death Guard was so. Why a lot of people hated the fact that they lost their feel no pain with Death Guard, because it was so good having a 5+ feel no pain across your whole army. And you still imagine if the Death Guard had that feel no pain thing and the damage reduction they had now. You don't need to imagine it, you just need to get a squad of aberrants to feel it, to experience it. Okay? That's how good it was. Every single time it's like, okay, so I need to roll 2 at a time. Oh look, there's a 5 and a 6. That means that this next, you know, full payload missile is not going, is only going to kill, you know, that means 2 shots for full payload manticore is only going to kill 1 aberrant. And then if you get that double 6, it just that's it. That shot is it's just gone. It's just gone. So yeah, it's fantastic. It is absolutely fantastic. And What it's actually made me think, guys, I know this is going to sound controversial, and it's going to sound crazy, and I don't even know if I'm going to be bothered to put the money behind this, because knowing Games Workshop, they'll just diddle Genestealers anyway. But aberrants could... I'm thinking 30 aberrants. Or something crazy. You know, they are just set. They're 2 wounds each as well. They're so durable. Yeah, they're just, it's difficult. I don't know. What if you took aberrants and Bulgrins and you brothered them, Genestealers them together, and you just ran like 30 Bulgrins or 27 Bulgrins and like 30 aberrants, and you had a patriarch there, so they were all fearless, and then you could like banzai charge your Bulgrins across the board, and your aberrants could pop out of the ground. I don't know. It sounds pretty crazy, and I don't know if it would work, but it has got my old brain box thinking. And on that mad bombshell, we'll probably leave it here today. Hope you have enjoyed this video. If you have enjoyed what you've seen here today, please consider heading on over to the Patreon page. There will be a link down in the description below. I'm very transparent with the whole Patreon thing. I don't monetize any of my videos. I try to have as few adverts as possible. And I'm just basically I'm totally public funded by my awesome and very generous Patreon supporters. So thank you to my Patreon supporters. You guys are just great. You know, I could butter you up and, you know, say lots of things, but the simple fact of the matter is that my Patreon supporters, you guys, you're just fucking great. So thank you for supporting this channel. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, and of course, I'll see you guys next time.